Hello everyone, Mr. Wolf Recaps here. Today I am going to explain the American post-apocalyptic thriller film called Vanishing on 7th Street. Relax and enjoy. The movie begins in a theater where a crowd of people are enjoying a film. The projectionist, Paul, is in the other room controlling the projections. He has a headlamp on to help him see through the dark cinema hall. Paul is a massive bookworm and loves to read while he is at work. This is a pretty harmless hobby compared to the projectionists in Fight Club. We see him read a book called The Lost Colony of Roanoke, in which the people of a town disappear mysteriously. When he gets up to push some buttons on the control panel, the lights go off, leaving the theater in complete darkness. Thankfully, Paul has his headlamp, which he uses to walk inside the theater room. But to his surprise, the place that was filled with people only seconds ago is now completely empty. His book has come true. Quick, Paul, read Harry Potter. He runs down the hallway calling for his colleagues, a guard with a torchlight who is just as confused. Hears him. The two then walk around the place looking for people. The guard notices someone in a dark corner and approaches them, but his torchlight stops working midway. When Paul looks back at him, the guard is gone and his clothes are on the floor. Somewhere else in a hospital, a nurse named Rosemary is distraught because of a similar event. The place is dark and no one is around except for her. She walks down the hallway with a flashlight but finds no one. Rosemary enters the operation room and finds a patient on the bed. His body has been cut as if the surgeon has left him mid-surgery. All of a sudden the lights of the room go out and the patient disappears. A terrified Rosemary starts looking for her baby Manny. The next morning, a TV reporter named Luke Ryder wakes up to see his partner hasn't returned home. He blows out the candles on his side table, which is probably the reason he hasn't vanished like the rest. Luke also notices his phone is out of battery and the power is out. Ignoring everything, he dresses up and goes outside only to see the streets filled with abandoned cars and clothes. Confused, he starts looking around and witnesses a plane crash nearby. Not knowing what to do, he rushes to his work and sees the situation is similar. All this time he doesn't notice a subtle shadow following him. Luke discovers the power is out even at his office and none of the phones work. He then looks at a picture of him and his girlfriend when suddenly a shadow outside the room catches his attention. After Luke leaves, we see darkness taking over the picture. 72 hours after the first disappearance, Luke is in the street trying to start a car. Suddenly a man bangs on the window asking for help. He has a lighter in his hands that has stopped working. Luke locks the doors and lets the shadow take over the man. The poor guy disappears within seconds, leaving only his clothes behind. After watching the man die, Luke continues looking for a car that works. A little girl with a flashlight watches him from nearby, but he doesn't notice her. In his search, Luke finds a car with its headlights on, but it doesn't start. Finally, on the next block, he comes across a well-lit pub. Pubs save everyone from the darkness. He quickly goes inside but sees no one around. The bar also has people's clothes lying on the floor. He then pours himself some alcohol to calm down, looking for the source of power. He reaches the basement. It has a backup generator that lights up the whole place, but to his disappointment it is about to run out of fuel. All of a sudden, a 12-year-old kid named James points a rifle at him. He asks Luke to put his torch down and takes him upstairs. James is afraid because Luke is a stranger, but Luke assures the kid that he will not harm him. James finally puts the gun down and introduces himself. He turns out to be the son of the owner of the pub. He and his mother were the only ones left after the very first disappearance. His mother has gone to a church nearby to ask for help and James is waiting for her. Luke decides to be honest with the kid and says that it is still dark outside at 11 a.m. Since the first disappearance, the sun has been rising late and setting early. In a few days they won't have sunlight, so the chances of James's mother returning are very low. James doesn't believe him and insists that he will wait until she arrives. Luke tries to convince James to come with him if he wants to survive, which is pretty weird because he was eager to let that guy earlier die horribly. However, James stays adamant in his decision. A while later, the nurse Rosemary barges into the pub frantically searching for her child Manny. She blames the other two for abducting Manny and demands that they give him back. The lady then goes crazy and points a gun at the two. She only comes down after firing a shot at the counter somewhere nearby. The projectionist Paul wanders through the dark street. He is seconds away from being engulfed in the darkness when he reaches a well-lit bus stop and is saved. However, he is heavily injured and cannot move anymore. Back at the pub, James calms Rosemary and offers her some water. The woman says that she is looking for her 9-month-old son Monty. She seemed pretty sure that he was in the pub. So the baby must have a drinking problem. The movie goes into a flashback and we see Rosemary in the hospital taking a smoke break. Suddenly the lights go out and the noise of a car crash follows. She is saved because of the lighter she had in her hand, and they say smoking kills. She somehow survives the night and goes to her house the next morning. There she goes up to the crib in her room, hoping to see her baby only to find her missing. Back in the present, Rosemary brings out glow sticks from her bag that she had been using to survive. As they talk, a loud scream from outside catches their attention. They contemplate if they should go look if there's a survivor. Luke doesn't want to take the risk, but the other two insist he save the person. At last Luke goes searching and finds an injured Paul at the bus stop. They hear whispers from the shadow that moves closer. Luke somehow drags Paul to the pub, putting his own life at risk. Rosemary helps Paul addresses his wound. A while later he gains consciousness and starts explaining how he got there. According to Paul, after everything went down, he was safe because of his headlamp, but for a few minutes it stopped working and he was hit by someone on his head. The shadows soon took over him and brought him to the void. They whispered in Paul's ears, making him beg for help. However, right then his headlamps started to work again. And he was back in the streets. Paul somehow managed to get to the bus stop. And that is where Luke found him. When asked about the person who hit him, Paul tells them that there was no body or face. It was just a shadow. Rosemary, who is a Catholic, tells them that they are left behind as a punishment by God. Luke counters that there is no God and they do not deserve this punishment. Suddenly, the lights flicker again and they go down to the basement to check the backup generator. As Luke fixes the generator, Paul tells them about the book he read earlier, The Lost Colony of Roanoke. He explains that in 1587 people from an island colony named Roanoke mysteriously disappeared overnight. The rest of the world only found out when a boat with supplies came by and the workers found the island empty. The people have left all their food, livestock and clothing, as it was the only thing they left behind was the word Croatoan written on a metal fence. Luke inquires what the word means, but Paul claims it to be a mystery. Frustrated, Paul starts kicking the generator and injures himself. He is then brought and kept on the pool table by the others. Rosemary asks Luke to get some ice for the injured while getting the ice. Luke remembers the last time he was at his office. He is in the broadcasting studio where he finds the last news recording. The woman reporter vanishes into thin air while talking. Wow, they'll do anything to keep their ratings up? Then a live feed from Chicago is played. A person warns everyone to keep light with them at all times. He also claims that the darkness may take on any shape or form to lure you to your death. Hence not to trust anybody except light. Back in the present, Luke gets an idea to get out of the situation. If he somehow finds a way to get to Chicago, they can meet the other survivors and then decide what to do. He remembers the working truck he had encountered earlier and suggests to the others that they should retrieve the vehicle. Since the generator could fail at any time, they should instead use it to ignite the vehicle and drive away from the place. Rosemary is skeptical of the idea because she believes all this is happening for a reason. But Luke persuades her to join the plan. They decide that James should stay with Paul and take care of him while Rosemary and Luke go to get the vehicle. In the following scene, Rosemary and Luke manage to get to the truck and start pushing it to get back to the pub. At the same time, Paul starts questioning James about several things in his life. He is slowly losing consciousness, but James asked him to stay awake. He requests that James play a song that they both enjoy. James starts imagining the bar full of people and enjoys the fantasy amidst the chaos. He is only brought back when Paul asks him to get some water. James goes to the sink to fetch it, but suddenly the lights flicker and go off somewhere else. Luke and Rosemary take a break from pushing the vehicle. Luke tells her about his ex-wife Anna in Chicago. As they talk, they see a little girl holding a flashlight at a distance. It is the same girl who was watching Luke earlier when he was on the road. They try to get closer to her, but the little girl runs away. Luke goes behind her and is almost engulfed by the shadows, but he is saved at the last minute because of the truck's headlight. In the following scene, Paul gets up and looks for James only to find his clothes on the floor. James is naked somewhere. He walks up to the basement and sees a door that leads to a well-lit tunnel. He goes inside still looking for James but comes across a dead end. The lights start to go out on their own and he is soon engulfed by the shadows, but then it is shown that Paul's clothes are on the pool table. Him getting to the tunnel was just his dream. Paul was actually unconscious and was taken by the shadows while he was still on the pool table. James quickly comes back to Paul and sees that he is gone and sees that it is Paul that is naked somewhere. In the meantime, Luke and Rosemary's flashlights start running out of batteries all at once. Luke tries to ignite the fuel to create light, but they've got no lighter, so they're to go to a nearby hospital searching for any source of light. There, Luke ignites a fire with a matchstick and a cloth. Rosemary goes to find rubbing alcohol which they can use as fuel, but on her way, she hears a baby crying and sees a stroller right under a streetlight, unknown that it is the Shadow's tactic to lure her, and Rosemary walks up to the stroller. She notices the stroller is empty, but it is too late as she is taken by the Shadows. Luke, who is now alone, somehow gets back to the pub with the truck. He reunites with James and to get in the truck ready to leave for Chicago. Luke uses the backup generator to start the engine and to finally drive away. However, they are soon met with an accident that happens to be right in front of the church. James insists he has to go in to look for his mother despite Luke warning him to stay in the car. James runs inside the church. Just then Luke sees the word Croatoan carved into a roadside. This twist is absolutely pointless. He rushes back to James and saves him seconds before the Shadows get him. Luke then asks the kid to return with him but is ignored again. James claims that his mother is nearby because he heard her call him, not knowing that it was just a trap set by the Shadows. Suddenly the car's headlights turn off and Luke vanishes into thin air. Now the only survivor left is James. He sits in between the lit candles of the church, but all of them slowly extinguish. The next morning the sun finally rises. Surprisingly, James has survived the night and is sleeping where he was yesterday. The little girl from earlier approaches him and introduces herself as Brianna. She shows James her solar flashlight that she has been using to survive. But if there's less sunlight every day, and it takes a long time to charge these things, then how did she? Never mind. Later both of them come outside the church and see a horse in the middle of the road. That you get on the horse and start their journey, presumably to a safe place. Soon the sun sets and we see the Force ghosts of Anakin, Rosemary and Paul watching over the kids. The movie ends as Brianna and James continue their journey. I hope you enjoyed the brief review of the film and be sure to watch IT Rewards.